That's why I like. Yeah, but it's not the same. Like, about those one that was her. The only time you want to be is out. You just like have a bunch of this and you're supposed to be there for every good. Oh no, I saw it one. That's why you get one through. And then I divided. I feel like I don't. I was gonna say you're comfortable to go. I used to be you're like I never had it. Yeah, it's all like yeah, you know, and I do want self-control there.
All right, good morning. I let it go for a long time, but the people in my class before know it's driving me nuts. The clock is like way too zoomed in and this is like all weird. I don't know why we have all this weird space. I'm gonna let it go, but look at like when I zoom out, it's like the top half. I just want to take that thing and be like pull it down. I can't, so I'm gonna let it go. But I can't do anything to it. We're not allowed to touch it. You're not? I'm not allowed to touch it, right? Somebody else touch it. No, I'm just kidding. Did everyone have a good weekend? Not too bad. Can you believe Halloween's next week? Yeah, it's a week from Thursday, right? I won't see you on Halloween, but I'll see you the day before Halloween. Is anyone gonna dress up or do anything like fun? Dress up? I wish we could dress up. I dressed up before on Halloween, but we don't meet on Halloween this year, which is too bad. Maybe next year, right? It's like go back. I guess next year will be a Friday. That's fun too in its own way. But I hope everyone is doing well and hanging in there. We do have our second exam on Wednesday. I wrote that up there. I'll talk about that at the end, just a couple of reminders related to that. What I want to do today is spend some time talking about the movie that we spent 2 classes watching, and then I'll collect those worksheets from you. I left this up so we have some reminders for who all these folks are, since there again were a lot of them in the film. And we don't have to talk about all of it, but I do have a couple of questions from the worksheet that I want to just kind of chat about. And I think the movie did a good job of connecting like the communication unit, the unit on love and relationships. And then if we have a little bit of time after, I'll highlight a few things from chapter 10, which I sometimes cover and sometimes don't, depending on time. But let's talk about a few things from here. And I know several of you have seen the movie before, but this whole movie, kind of number 2, I didn't give them numbers on here, but the second question, I feel like this movie is all about like rules for dating. Right? And what's interesting is I feel like rules are always evolving and always changing. And so I don't know, so what did you write here? So what do you think about these rules? Do you think the rules have changed from this? Are any of them still true? Like, what are some of the like comments that you wrote down related to like rules for dating? Any thoughts to kind of start us off? What did you write down? Anything for number 2? You don't have thoughts, I will give you thoughts to help. Like anything that you wrote down for number 2? Like who calls who? Does anybody even call anymore? Who calls who texts who, right? Like, what do you think? I haven't obviously dated in a very long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Didn't even sound like I'm going to call him for 10 years.
I called him, right?
I think that was like the example. Like it's radio for a call and I'm not get it.
Sure.
And then really a lot of expectation.
Yeah.
In today's society, everyone calls each other. Like we need to get those to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So not even calling. I mean, other thoughts about calling and texting, like who contacts who after a date? Like, what do you think about that idea of like who calls or who texts or who reaches out? Any thoughts? Yeah.
I feel like all of the rules that are put around dating are pretty much just don't communicate your feelings is what they're saying.
Okay.
It's don't say maybe why you wouldn't want to meet someone again or why you do want to meet someone again.
Interesting.
And I think that lays a bad precedent for the rest of a relationship.
Sure. Don't communicate anything.
Yeah,
okay.
say how you're feeling and that'll work out.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really like those rules.
Yeah, I don't blame you. That seems like an awkward way to start. Yeah. Sure. Yeah,
Because like they actively make it signals and mix signals on purpose and
yeah.
it's not.
Yeah.
What's the point of that?
That's frustrating, right? And I forget, oh, I was at the gym. I was at the gym last week on Friday and they were showing Baby Mama and like their cinema at the gym. And like you have to be careful. If you share too much too quickly, you scare people away. You don't share enough, like quick enough, you scare people away. You're too honest, you scare people away. You're not honest enough, you scare people away. Like it's kind of a like there's this whole scene in the beginning of that movie where she's telling some guy that she's dating, you know, like it's their first date. She's like, I want to have kids and I want to do this and I want to do all these things. He's like, I'll be right back. And you see him getting in a cab outside, like running away. It's such a fine line. I don't know any other like thoughts about that, about like what you say or don't say or how you communicate after a first date? Yeah.
I feel like there's movies that are really good about representing like how women feel and how like we just like we get, especially when we're like waiting for a call.
Sure.
Now I think it'd be more so we're waiting for a text.
Okay.
And I'm not saying people don't call, but it's more like maybe a FaceTime here and there.
Okay.
So I definitely think the rules have changed and has made the whole dating thing like really weird and different.
Sure.
Especially with like the whole like, oh, I'm gonna talk to you for like 6 months and then I still don't want to be your opinion, you know, like, so it's just really different.
Sure.
So yeah.
Okay. All right. Complicated, right? I won't lie. I'm really glad I don't have to worry about that right at the moment, right? It sounds complicated from what you're all saying, and it's always been complicated, just in different ways over time. What about another rule? And it didn't come up too much in this one, but it's one that's traditionally kind of a interesting rule that can be like a very challenging moment on a date. Who pays for dinner? Okay, so that's a rule that didn't come up in here. This movie talks a lot about who reaches out and who does what and like how long you have to wait and what that means and all that stuff, which I think is really individual, like from person to person. But how about like who pays for dinner on a date? How about with that rule? Yeah.
My rule has always been whoever asks out / plans the date is the one that pays.
Okay, that feels fair. I asked you out, so I'll pay for it. Okay, other people feel differently because it's usually that people all feel very differently about this. Yeah. Okay.
If that's not happening or like, I don't know, I want to be different, I always do the rule of whoever drove the least amount of miles should pay.
Okay.
Because gas is so expensive and like,
Yes, is
you know, and I've done that forever just because I'm like, well, but no, and then that should pay. You're asking me out, you're in my wonderful presence.
Okay, if you want the delight of my presence, you're paying for the meal, okay? So two very different, like you asked me out, the guy should pay, like whoever like initiated the date should pay. Other thoughts? Yeah.
I like to fail. See if I can scare them all.
Okay.
I like spending money.
Okay.
They don't like that, then might as well leave it.
Okay, so let's just get that out of the way because if you react poorly, I know it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
I like that. That's fun. Yeah, that's
Environment.
okay. I like that, right? Somebody should always buy dessert. Am I? Whoever that is, right? Okay. Interesting. Other thoughts at all? Yeah.
I've always felt that before your committed relationship, I think splitting splitting just like, oh, I got this, I'll pay for this.
Okay.
I think that's more than fair and also takes away like maybe a feeling of feeling like you are feeling like you owe the person
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I was waiting for that.
You don't want to put someone in the position where you feel like they, you know, owe you for the next one or something
Yeah.
like that. But definitely, you know, now being in a long-term committed relationship, I think just, I don't know, I'm more than happy paying for this one. You pay for the next one, I'll pay for the next one.
Sure, kind of alternating. Mhm. And the idea of owing someone makes it tricky too, right? Like, so if they pay for the date, like I saw a TikTok over the weekend and I tried to go back and find it, but I couldn't find it. And it was like this guy ranting about how he paid for this woman's like meal, and so she owed him sex basically as a result of like him paying for it. And so sometimes people don't want someone else to pay for it because then they feel like they owe them, or they want to pay for it because that's how they are and they want to like put that out there. I love watching this moment in restaurants, right? The moment the check arrives is like the most awkward moment, and I love watching other people like have that drama, right? Like my kids and I, like my kids have dragged them into this. So we all like, we're at Islands the other day, we're all like watching for other people to get the check. When you've been in a long-term relationship, it doesn't tend to be as tricky, but on a date, that can be hard, right? And like, if you think the man pays for it, what happens if there's no man? Or there's two men, right? Then what, right? Like, I don't know. What happens now, right? I don't know. Any other like thoughts about that? Yeah.
I think that whoever like asks out the person
Sure.
should at least like offer first, but I feel like it's kind of like a polite, like cutesy thing, and they're like, no, I'll do it, no, I'll do it, but like the
Sure.
person who asks the other person out should offer first.
Okay,
And then maybe there could be like banter.
right? Fair. That seems fair. And any other thoughts? Yeah.
Maybe you got a different perspective, but I've been married for so long that everything's in the same account.
Right.
It all comes out the
Yeah.
same thing, so it doesn't matter who pays for it, you're both paying for it in the end. It's like,
Right.
you know, it doesn't really matter, so it just, there's no hard feelings, like, you know, if some things like laundry needs to be done, it can be done, but don't expect anything else, because it just, that's how.
It just has to happen,
That just
right?
has to happen, you
Right.
know,
Mhm.
it's gotta be there.
And I think when you've been in a relationship and your money's combined, then it's kind of like a moot point, right? Like, because it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's like whatever.
Yeah, right. It doesn't matter if it's my card or my partner's card. It's coming from the same spot. Like, we have to pay for it either way, right? Though I always put my card out there. It doesn't matter. Right? Like, it doesn't matter at all. My brother, this is so funny. My brother is younger than me by quite a bit. He's like 14 years. I have two brothers, but one of them is in his like late 20s. And he was going on a date this weekend. And like, we're not super close, but we talk all the time. And he's like, I'm taking this girl out on a date. I'm like, oh, where are you gonna take her? He's like, McDonald's. And I was like, Nikki, like, why McDonald's? He's like, does she like McDonald's? He's like, I don't know, but I like McDonald's. And I was like, oh, that's just gonna go well, right? And I was like, well, hopefully you're at least gonna like offer to pay for it. He's like, yeah, sky's the limit on the dollar menu. And I'm like, oh, come on, man. Like, my poor brother, I'm sure you're doing great. I haven't talked to him since.
Something he was like just joking.
I don't think he was. I genuinely don't think he was. My older younger, but both my brothers are younger, but my older younger brother, he's been married for a long time. We're very similar. My youngest brother, he's totally got that, like, yeah, he legitimately, I think, took her to McDonald's and limited it to the dollar menu. So I don't think it went well. I'll find out. I'll have to let you know. I somehow doubt it. But this is a moment, like, rules, like, for who calls who texts who reaches out and when, what that means. Then you have dinner, right? Or like whatever you're doing, who pays for it, who asks them out, like, all of these things get so complicated. And I love that the movie like touches on it. And then yet the damage it does with the like, oh, no, I didn't mean you. I mean, this is for me, right? With all of the rules and the exceptions and all of that, navigating all of that can be so tricky when it comes to dating, right? I don't know, any other like dating like rules or thoughts before I keep going? Yeah.
I do think it's funny in the process of getting the check at a restaurant.
Yeah.
There are like very subtle gender roles that are being
Sure.
reinforced. I went to dinner with my partner, who is a woman, and the waiter said ladies when he came to our table.
Huh.
I didn't correct him because I thought it was funny.
Right. Uh-huh.
And when he came back with the check, he put the check in front of my partner. Which I
Interesting.
don't know what that says, what he thinks I am.
What he thinks of you,
Or what
right?
he
Or
thinks
not?
of me, but it was a very funny moment later.
Huh.
It's like,
You're like, open your eyes. Okay. Interesting. Right? And then put it in front of like your partner.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
It happened again this weekend.
Oh my, right? I wonder what they're paying attention to. Right? It feels great. You like it. But I love that you were like, I found it interesting, right? I mean, sometimes those things, like, what can you do but find it like amusing, right? Yeah.
Add on to that, you know, in a same-sex relationship, you know, you go to a restaurant, we often, we're like, who are gonna give it to?
Yeah.
It's a game. Yeah, no, we play a game every single time, like Cheesecake Factory and like Chi-Chi's, we play a game and we're like, who do you think they're gonna give it to?
Yeah.
Because like, it depends on who is like the loudest when they're ordering, or like
Mm.
not the loudest, but like the most confident when they're talking, or like that kind of stuff. And it's kind of funny
Yeah,
to see who they put in front, because we've both gotten the check. Yeah, it's most of it.
Uh-huh.
I would just rather not talk. It's, but I don't have to hear. But like, it's like, yeah, but it's still a game.
okay. I like that game. And you know what? It's funny. I can relate to that too, right? As being in a
Yeah.
same-sex relationship, and we're always like, who are they gonna give it to? They always give it to me,
Yeah.
right? Which is fine.
I mean,
Like, I don't
whether
care.
it's paid
but-
or not, like,
Yeah.
just put it in front of me. It's
Mhm.
fun.
Right? They always give it to me and then I hand it to my partner and be like, do you have my wallet in your purse? Right? Like, I mean, because again, it comes from the same place at some point for us anyway, like our accounts are combined, which isn't always the case, right? For relationships, but oftentimes is the case when you've been together a long time. But it's interesting, like what the assumptions they make and like who they hand it to or don't hand it to, and then what you do with that, right? Always entertaining. I love to watch this moment in restaurants because it's an awkward one for a lot of people. How about the last one on this page? At what point do you think that Ben, where's Ben? I'm like, where's the, I don't know, I had a name for him, but I'll keep it to myself. Right, what point do you think he was cheating? Right, this is an interesting one because I think everyone has different lines for cheating, but when do you think he was cheating on his wife? Yeah.
I feel early on, even when they like agreed to like be friends.
Okay.
They were pretty, like, it wasn't even subtle, they were both pretty flirtatious with each other.
Sure.
You're really hot, which I know that's probably debatable at the same time, but I feel like, yeah, you don't have to be like that, like, like, that's basically like throwing yourself at the person. So,
Okay. So for you, like really early, you would say.
yeah.
Okay. And again, we all have our own lines, right? Like of what constitutes cheating. Yeah.
I would say the moment that he took her number,
Okay.
because he knew that she was attractive, like he found her attractive, right?
Mhm.
From very early on, he knew that this is a good looking woman. And so for me, I think it's more so emotional cheating. And
Okay.
it literally just opened the doors, right? Like it wasn't just like, oh, give me your number for the music, like it opened up the doors for cheating.
Mhm.
So I feel like that was the moment that he cheated. Because he
Okay.
had a wife, right? Like, if you find somebody attractive, you shouldn't be handing out your number or getting numbers, regardless of like, you know, work staff, like your work, I guess. Cause it's not like they had to work together. It's like he offered to help her out with her singing career.
Okay.
So I think that's where I'm at with that.
Right on. Right. Again, everyone different. Yeah.
My notes, I put cheating leading up to the real cheat, and I feel like
Yeah.
everything he did, like before he slept with her, was like pre-cheating.
Okay.
Because again, it was like emotional cheating instead of physical, and then he did actually physically cheat. But I feel like the part where he was like, "Am I not allowed to have friends who are hot?" I was like, "I'm gonna slap you!" Like obviously, if he thinks that, then he's like internally guilty. He's like, "What? This isn't bad. You're just really hot. Like I want to sleep with you, and you're gonna swim in front of me naked." It's like what? It's whatever. It's not whatever. It's pre-cheat, and then
Okay.
he did end up cheating. So I feel like all of it, I hated him, but then he like actually cheated, so that was like the cheating.
So actually cheating for you was when he had sex with her.
Yeah, but
Okay.
like I feel like if I was his wife or his girlfriend, and I heard any of the things leading up to that, so then yeah, I'm like,
Red flags, red
Yeah.
flags. Okay. Yeah.
I say the moment they do this, I don't know. How do you talk about her?
Okay.
It's like, it's a different thing to, you know, say, hey, I met this person and I found them physically attractive. But, you know, I don't plan on doing anything about it, or, hey, I plan to do something about it. Just wanna let you know, in his case, you know. But like, the fact that he didn't tell his wife, even when she was like, hey, is everything okay? He goes, yeah, it's fine. And that was kind of the moment that I considered him cheating.
Okay.
Because he lied by omission because of that. And it's like, you can have, you know, friends that you're attracted to or whatever. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that, you know, you're going to do anything about it. And that if he talked to her and, yeah,
Okay.
don't have to further explain that.
No,
but,
I
like,
think it makes sense. Okay.
you can be physically attracted to somebody without the intention of wanting to do something.
Sure. Okay. Other thoughts? Yeah.
I think as soon as we like get it back, because I never did that back and forth with things on record.
You did the right thing there, right? You tried.
You ended it there and we didn't say anything, but as soon as you like pick up the phone and call it out, I was like, that's like the start.
Okay.
Because this developers to the fact that they're shooting for this,
Mhm.
and then he doesn't.
He doesn't anymore. Yeah, at that moment, he called her up in that room, and then his wife walks in, and he's all like, flustered from it, right? Okay, anyone else? Different thought? Yeah.
I agree that like the second I didn't tell her properly, it was like automatically cheating, because I feel like in a situation where like if the guy is just unhappy, but he actually wants to make it work, he's gonna communicate, hey, I'm not happy, or hey, I met someone and made me feel this way, now what are we gonna do about it?
Okay.
As terms of like, I don't really wanna cheat on you, but this is how I'm feeling. I feel like if that was the case, then he could have told me that. But I don't know, because with her character, I feel like even if you told her, oh yeah, I saw her naked, that she's fine, I feel like she still would have been like, okay, that's fine.
As long as you're not smoking.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
But I feel like in any other case, like real world, I feel like the second that you can't tell your partner like what you did or
Yeah.
like person, and obviously you feel guilty about separate.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I'm a very possessive person. I think I've shared that with you before, and a jealous person. So like mine would have been like right away at the store. If I was in the car and I saw my partner talking to like somebody else outside the store, like that close like that, I would have been, I would have been out of the car. in a heartbeat. But I mean, that's for me, like at that point, like when he reaches out again, like it's such a hard thing, like emotionally, you can cheat on somebody without physically cheating. But some people only count the physical as the actual act of cheating. Right, and so it's kind of an interesting line, and it could be different for every single one of you. It could be when he had sex with her, when he called her, when he became emotionally invested. It could be any of those things. I think it's just kind of interesting to read about. Yeah. Okay.
Betray them by not like respecting them, not to be able to tell them about something you did,
Mm.
whether it's emotional or physical.
Okay.
So, like, that's like, I think it's just the way that I live it. And
Sure.
because you can't tell your partner that you did something, and like, that just leads to further, I guess, cheating.
Okay. Like it opens the door.
Yeah.
Like you said. I've always had the rule of like, if I wouldn't be comfortable doing it in front of my partner, then it's probably not okay. Right? Like if I wouldn't be comfortable saying something or doing something, and like if she walked up and saw it and it was a problem, like then that's kind of like always been the line in our relationship. Like if you wouldn't be comfortable saying it or doing it in front of me, well, maybe that's a problem, right? And like, but we have the same line, so it works. But what if somebody's really flirtatious, right? And is that cheating? Right? Or is it not until they have like any physical interaction with them? If people have different lines, that's where the problem tends to come. Right? If you like, oh, like emotionally you can cheat, but or physically you can cheat and they're not the same, that's when it gets tricky. Yeah.
Very, very.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen him straight up just like being himself in front of a girl, and like, no, whatever. And then all of you see me like kind of flirt, but it doesn't lead anywhere.
Sure.
So we're just like very, very friendly and I don't get offended because one who never crosses the line and he knows that I will never cross the line.
Yeah.
And it's just cheap until one there's emotional stuff connected.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like, that's kind of
And the fact that both of you are, and like, neither of you are gonna do anything about it works. But what if one person is and one isn't? That's where it gets tricky, right? But for you two, it sounds like it works that you're both flirty, right? Because you trust each other. Okay. I love you're like, you're not gonna do anything about it, whatever, right? Like, it's fine. I wanna see you fail right now. Okay, yeah.
I feel like in the context of this movie, like, it's not like Ben was just being like flirty with like a client or like just like a person on the street to be like friendly or whatever, like he like called her and then like went to her yoga class on purpose.
Yeah.
He was clearly seeking her out. It wasn't like a one-time interaction, it was like a little bit flirtatious.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. Like when like in customer service, like you're really nice to someone, you're like, oh my gosh, like they like me. It's like, no, they're doing their job.
They're
not
being
reaching
friendly.
out to you.
Yeah.
He like saw her.
Okay. Interesting. Was there another? Is there another hand? Okay. How about on the back? How about with technology? So obviously Drew Barrymore talks about like MySpace, right? Which isn't really a thing, obviously, anymore. But what do you think about the idea about like technology helping or harming relationships? Obviously, it can go either way. It could be both. But any thoughts about like, the role of technology in either like dating or relationships and like the being rejected by different technologies and all that kind of stuff? Anything that you wrote down there? Yeah.
Okay. So I don't really like saying that it helps or hinders.
Sure.
because I think it's a little bit both.
Of course.
Because I feel like the internet helps you find so many other people,
Mhm.
but those relationships are not always successful. So it's always like it's inevitable that it's gonna be like speed dating. So
Okay.
it's just really, really fast dating that are always failing. And so, yes, it's helping people meet other people, but it's not helping create good relationships.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Other thoughts? Yeah.
think, like, the way that we use, any social media in general, it's kind of a tool, and it's up to the people who use it, to use it for good or bad.
Sure.
And I remember, in one of my other classes that's about media literacy, we had a conversation where apparently there are statistics that back up, like, dating apps set up more successful relationships than people who move organically, apparently, which was a huge surprise to me. But the reasoning behind it is that it's easier to have open emotional communication on needs and set those boundaries really early on.
Okay.
It's something that they make you do, or that you should do on your profile when you make that. Which makes sense that it would encourage more conversation on those important boundaries versus where you initially meet someone and you may not have that conversation for a while.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was an interesting perspective on it because I did not expect that to be the case.
Yeah. And I think because you can put so much out there, like, and people either like it or they don't like it, right? Like you can kind of put more out there than maybe you do when you meet in person and you're not putting, you're kind of slowly getting to know each other versus like, here's my profile and everything about me. And then you're going from there. Other thoughts? Yeah.
One thing that always comes to mind is like, in my personal experience, I think it's been negative, like using Hinge, Tinder, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it's like, have a conversation and then I think it's going good, and then all of a sudden, nothing. And like, at that point, I'm like, whatever about it, but it keeps happening, so then it's like this cycle of like, I talk to somebody, and then I'm like, I ghost them or they ghost me, and then it's like I move on.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just been very, like, I don't know, then I always think like my mom and dad, they met through a corn group chat. I don't know, this is back in like the day. And like, they were living in like, no, seriously, but they like, my mom was living in California, my dad was living in Virginia.
Okay.
And so they talked and through online, and then they were sending pictures in letters. So it was like, there was still that.
The old days.
No, but there was still that sense of like talking to somebody you don't really know.
Sure.
And then they took the leap to meet that person. And I feel like, yes, like Tinder, Hinge has made it easier to do things like that, but it's also made it easier to like be in like this quick, like, oh, nope, you're not for me, nope, nope, nope.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And not
Mhm.
actually getting to know that person.
It's much more like instant gratification in a way. I think
Yeah.
that people are much quicker with that kind of stuff. Other thoughts? Yeah.
Like, it can be like a little bit dangerous, or it's not dangerous, but just like uncertain, because like people will have access to so many other people and like connection to them. So like you can like be on a date with someone or like talk to somebody you met online, but they have like 5 other people that they're talking to.
Yeah.
And like, it just like kind of like that uncertainty. Like I saw a TikTok the other day where this girl was like, I'm laying in bed with my situationship right now and he's on Hinge in front of me. I
Uh-huh.
was like, see, like, he just has access to talk to whoever.
Right.
So.
I love that situationship, right? Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, it creates a different culture, I think, right? And I think as long as you're in the same culture and mentality of it, it's okay. When you're not, that's when it gets tricky. Other thoughts? Anyone over here? Yeah.
Away from like dating itself, which is actually like when you're already in a relationship. In the end, it's always gonna come down to like the person can totally like prevent this, but I feel like also like now with like so many social media platforms, there's like so many different ways to like feel either insecure or like get angry with your partner. Like on TikTok, there's like the repost, or I don't know if you
Mhm.
there's the repost or like the following, and then you can also hide the following, and then it's like,
Yeah.
hiding
Why
it.
are you hiding
Yeah,
it?
and then on Snapchat, when it was like really popular still, like the best friends list, like, oh, why is this girl on here, or why is that, or like, why did you clear the feed? And then Instagram, same thing, why are you following this model, following that, like,
why is it going up? Like now we're so like obsessive over all these.
Why
social
does this person
media.
keep liking everything that you post?
Yeah,
right?
and like, I mean, ultimately it comes down just to like, either the guy or the girl, like, they can totally like prevent that, and not do that, but at the same time, it's like. In the end, it really is just a follow, but like now it's just so extreme, and I feel like so many relationships have so many problems, because. Like, we've already talked about it, girls are so anxious, so like, of course, we're gonna like, why is this number going up, or why is this like that, or why is this private? And I just feel like in the end, it really just does create like so many problems, and then
Yeah.
on top of us already not really communicating and just making a lot of assumptions, I feel like it just.
I love that you brought that up because I was thinking it in the back of my mind. The other piece of this is not just in dating, but once you're in a relationship, how social media and technology can play a role. Okay, so over the weekend, or this was 2 weeks ago, I'll tell you like one more story. I'd probably tell you too many stories, so please not about it. But you're like, no, you like it. You don't mind. Okay, good. I look just to you for that. I don't know. All right. But over 2 weeks ago, my partner's ex started following her on TikTok. Okay, we have been together 21 years. 21 years. That's a long time. And I was like, why is she following me? She followed me too. And I was like, oh, maybe that's right. I don't know. But like every time, I don't think she knows that you can see like activity. Like she keeps checking our profiles. It is like every day. She keeps checking my partner's profile and then she checks mine. And my kids, like I was complaining about this, and my kids were like, "I'll make a profile and go stalk her." Hell yeah, do it! Like, like my 12-year-old's all like, she doesn't know who I am. I could stalk her because her name's like Strawberry something or other. Like you'd never know. Versus my partners and mine are like very like you can tell who we are from it very easily. And like it created all this tension, and then I went and stalked her like for like a good hour in one day. I was like, I need to find out why, right? Like it created all this tension, and like I mean, obviously, I'm not threatened much by her, like because they had a history. They were together like 8 years before we were together. And so it annoys me. I'm like, why? Why now? Why after all this time? Why? Like, why? And I'm like, I really want to know why. So I went and found her on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and stalked her for like an hour and found out she's married. And I'm like, oh, that's good, I think, right? Like, oh, why? What's wrong with the relationship that now, right? Like, and that's me. Like, I'm just that way as a person. And I love it. My kids are like stalking her too. I've taught them well. I don't know. But it can cause issues in a relationship later. Social media, and like it is, like in the end, it's just like, okay, she looked at our profile, but I couldn't help but wonder why. Like, why now? And I can't let it go. Right? Yeah. I know, right? Like, why did you lock that? Why are they following you? Right?
Like
I went
that,
through.
I would have been like, why did you remove it?
Yeah. Right, and I went on to hers and like hers was locked, but her wife's wasn't. I was like, oh, right? Like, I could see all of the pictures from her wife's side, and then I went down like a rabbit hole. My partner was like, why? Why did you waste your life doing that? Like, I don't give a crap about her. And she's like, why don't you stalk your ex? I'm like, I don't care about my ex. Like I care about yours. She's the threat, right? Anyway, like it's interesting. Like it just creates these dynamics that can be tricky. They can cause problems, and it's not even like anything that you do necessarily. You can't control who follows you or who likes you, who does what, but it can create tension. Yeah.
He bought the pictures on his phone, and I flipped the fuck out. I was like,
Oh.
and he was like, and I was like, what are you doing? What do you have? Like, I like literally freaked out, and I like haven't done that in a really long time, and it made me feel completely out of control. And then the next day, and then I looked in his things, and it was wedding rings, and I was like convinced that the man was cheating on me.
She's like, I just don't want you to ruin the surprise.
Oh, but he was like real secretive, and I was like, what are you doing? And I was like, so interested. I was like, oh my gosh, this man who I've been with for years is cheating on me.
Right? That's funny. Good thing it was, I'm glad it was a happy ending. I'm glad it was happy, right? Was there another?
I was
Yeah.
just gonna add to what she said, that I didn't even think about that, like how now it's really easy to fall into that like insecure thing. And
Sure.
and honestly, like, I'm a very anxious person, so I get it. But it just, I feel like the way technology is, like, it's made it that way, right? Like, Snapchat has my eyes only. Then you have the camera where you, like, you can lock it. And then there's like, you can delete things, but then you can also delete the
Right.
messages.
Is
you
it
know?
permanently deleted or just a little bit
Yeah,
deleted, right?
basically, I just, not just Apple, but just overall, generally, like, it's just made everything just more
Yeah.
complicated. And like, you just have to be very like,
It is.
crazy and weird.
It's tricky. Technology is tricky and it can be so incredibly helpful and wonderful, but it can lead to a lot of problems too. Have you ever gone and done something with a friend and you don't want to post it because you don't want another friend to see it?
Oh,
Right? Because that will create problems, right? Like just the layers of complication, right? Like, oh, we can't, nobody post pictures because they don't want them to know that we did this together, right? Like that stuff happens too. And it's so awkward. Yeah.
I was thinking about, like, on Snapchat, when, like, you said stuff, like, unless you have it set to not delete, like, you can't really, like, reopen it or, like,
Right.
see it again. And then there's the whole thing of people, like, snapping each other, where you're not actually talking, you're just, like, sending photos back and forth.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of when I was, like, 15, I was snapping one of my friends, and, like, we were just friends, and he had a girlfriend, and, like, I didn't, like, it was, like, whatever, but like, we were just sending photos, because that's what you do when you're, like, 15.
Sure.
And I sent a photo, and to the next photo, he said cute, like just one word, cute. And I was like, you have a girlfriend. And I was like, what are you doing? And I said that to him. I was like, you have a girlfriend. Like, you shouldn't say that. Like, we're just friends. And this is like the dumbest thing anyone's ever said to me. He says, I didn't call you cute. I called the photo cute.
Totally different things.
And I was like, I'm calling your girlfriend.
Sure.
So stupid. But then
Right.
it like goes away afterwards. Like,
Yeah.
whatever.
But it's those
It's not
little,
in a text.
yeah.
No, it was in a photo. So it's like,
So you can't find it again, right? The layers of it can get so, well, Chad, did you have a thought? You had your,
Oh, there's like, there is certain lines that go across in my marriage, like, I don't let her see my chart, it's like the medical chart. Cause she's like, it's too overbearing to see, it's not like an hiding, it just feels like, it's like, too many questions.
okay,
If there's something wrong, I'll tell her, but, you know, it's like questioning everything, it's like, oh, I opened up a can of worms I didn't want to open up. It's just like, things are
you're all,
going smooth, you know, it's like,
so
it's like, I share about everything, but that's the one thing I don't share.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, again, every relationship's different. Our family's like very open phone. Like our kids know that like, because my 10-year-olds have phones. And the rule of that was like, I can take your phone at any time and look at everything you've done or not done on your phone. That's expected, right? And so like my kids keep trying to hide their history, but they don't know how, which is so cute. So like, we're like, I saw you did all this. They're like, no, like I can see it all, right? My partner will take my phone and like randomly scroll through it, and I can take hers and randomly scroll through it. Like, I don't have anything to hide, and neither does she. But somebody else could be like, whoa, where I saw one or two people like that when I said that. Like everybody has different lines. And I think that's what makes some of this so interesting. It's like where those lines are for cheating, whether it's emotional or physical, where those lines are for communication, what you share, what you don't share. Interesting. I think it's just interesting stuff that changes generationally. But stays somewhat consistent, right? Different mediums of like technology, but issues, right? In the old days, right? You let me see that letter they wrote you. No, I don't, right? Do you think that any of them had a good relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah? Who? Neil and Beth? How do you feel about the ending that he proposed to her? Happy, not happy, you okay? Happy, happy, and? Anyone, yes? Look, I got a lot of thumbs up and then some, okay, yeah?
I'm saying only because he's like, he was so adamant about not being married in the movie, and then he just not like came, but yet it feels like it would be like a lie that he kind of like just didn't cover it. He still didn't cover it.
Okay,
It felt like my own principles and having.
Yeah.
That he just caves immediately,
sure,
and it felt a bit dishonest.
Okay.
Like I know that he's committed and everything, but like he was so adamant that he didn't need, the ring. To
Sure.
show his commitment and then
okay.
like buddy.
I'll come back over here, we have two hands over here first, yeah.
And then like I realized this. He's not the one wants to go and want to, so like we're is
Okay. Okay, yeah.
I think
Yeah.
But
Can worry about it.
some of his behaviors can be very like, I don't want to think that with like the acts and the underlying conditions where you have like insecurity issues. Or like maybe he was planning on proposing her, just like did not how to like hide the fact that he didn't want to reveal it like too soon or something. I don't know, like that could be totally the logical side. It could be like a pre-occurring thing that was like lying underneath, but yeah, I just think I don't think it was necessarily, he did it in the end just to like, he's in mind, it was more just like, he had like a bunch of things going on to do not have to do it, but maybe he just wasn't doing it well, because it kind of seemed like they shut each other out at certain points too. So maybe it was just.
Okay, yeah, it's hard to know, right? It's hard to know, yeah.
I don't think the James is that they had like a great relationship, like awesome communication, you know, like, they were both very honest about what they wanted. I mean, they really cared about each other, like he showed up for her, like, her dad, his heart attack.
Yeah.
And they, I think that they ultimately wanted the same thing, they just had different ideas of what that looked like.
Yeah.
And I think, like, one of the main things about being in a relationship is compromise, you know, and reciprocity with each other, and she made a huge compromise by saying,
Yeah.
I don't need to get married.
I'll let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
this, you know, reciprocal response was like, I guess we both want the same thing, and, you know, he was willing to compromise, like, his kind of, I would say stubborn opinion, or, stance, and they got married, I think, yeah.
It kind of felt like she gave up a little bit,
Yeah.
and so then he was willing to give up a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting, it's an interesting, like, I always wonder how you feel about the ending. There was a couple of hints over here, yeah.
I think it's the whole compromise thing, because I feel like I wouldn't call it like the cave, because it wasn't like she said, I'm not gonna be with you unless you marry me, like she wrote to and said, like, I just wanna be with you, it's fine if you don't get married, and then he decided to propose, so I feel like once he saw like how much she would compromise for him, he was like, okay, I wanna do the same for her.
Right.
So it's a choice.
Okay, all right, that seems fair. Did you have a thought too, or?
Like, no, I just think, I think when you love somebody so much and you see that something that they want is like, you're capable of giving that to that person, I think it made him want to give it to her.
Yeah.
Right, cause he saw that, okay, like, I really love this girl, she does all these things, like, we're in a good relationship. The only thing she's asking for is a marriage, right? And like, he's capable of doing that, and eventually I think he was like, okay, I wanna give that to you, because I know that will make you happy. In my head, I might be. but-
Yeah, sure, right, feels fair to say. Anything else? Most awkward Home Depot scene ever, right, moment, like, you do this in a Home Depot, right, what a place to do that, yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say, like, I agree with, like, what you said completely, but I also understand, like, the other side, is I feel that as a society, like, we're obsessed with this idea of, like, marriage, and, like, we could easily wrap our heads around it, like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, like, when are you getting married? Kind of the expectation that it's, like, they're, you know, the couple, that they, I mean, that they get married, which is not to imply that is what anyone who's like, who likes the ambiguous in life, but like, I guess I'm kind of understanding like both sides of the argument, like, because obviously marriage is something that's kind of like expected.
It is, there's like a formula to it, right? Like if you're with somebody long enough, you get married or you don't, right? And it kind of falls apart. And then traditionally, it's unexpected that you have children, right? It's like there's like this formula to follow. And a lot of people don't follow those formulas. But there are often like hiccups when you don't follow them, right? If been with someone so long and you don't get married, like what does that say? And that may or may not be accurate, right? As based on those like expectations that we have as a culture. Yeah.
I've always found it aren't married, they've been together for like 4 years, 50 years.
Sure.
And they're like being exclusive and
Yeah.
kind of married couple. But I think she said something about it being like marriage marriage was like a business deal almost, where it gets relying on money and, you know, all sorts of other things that don't matter to relationships. There's never like got legally contracted, but they still act like they're married.
Yeah, it's so interesting, you know, I have this idea that marriage is like the end all, makes the relationship safe, and then you have couples who are married that their relationship's awful, and couples who aren't married that their relationship's pretty good, right? Like, and so it's tricky, right? And I just think this movie is great for coming up with all these themes to talk about. Not my style of movie, but I enjoy watching it every time. Any other like anything else that you wrote down, or any other like comments, thoughts, things we did talk about or didn't talk about? Yeah.
I'm not sure, if you've ever seen the movie, but it's called The Breakup, and it's with Jennifer Aniston.
I haven't.
The other guy. It's from Wedding Crashers? No. I don't know. Anyways.
Is it Vince? I was just like Vince Vaughn.
Yeah, I don't know, but yes, probably. And, I think it also does a good job of, kind of picking at like relationships. Because she keeps like asking in the movie, she keeps asking him to do these things, and she gets into it about lemons. And I remember, and she's like, I just wanted you to pick up like 12 lemons, and he only picked up 3. And he's like, if I'd known this would cause an argument, like I would have picked up 100 lemons. And I think that movie also does a really good job of like nitpicking relationships and seeing the different sides of men and women and how they communicate. And I think it was just funny because she's also in this film.
Sure.
And, like she kind of, it's the same concept of like what a good relationship looks like and communication
breakup.
and all those things. Yeah.
All right. Things to watch after Halloween. I'm in the like the middle of like scary movie time, right? But after that, sounds good. Yeah, you got your minute.
I was just gonna say, I started actually happy with it. I was honestly expecting.
Yeah.
That when it's always a movie when it's like, oh, like there's an excuse, but when it's a woman who cheats, it's like, oh, she can do that help. But I was happy because, you know, obviously none of these characters, I mean, all these characters are flawed in some way.
Sure.
I feel it's kind of easy to tell that he's not a good husband.
Yeah.
And his wife.
He deserved his ending,
Yeah,
I think, right?
You needed to be held accountable.
Sure.
It's like both his wife and Scarlett Johansson's character, like they go on and they move on. And
Yeah.
They do what makes them happy, and I like that. And then he ends up and he dug his own grave, and I was like, that's
He did.
I like seeing that for once.
I like that too. Honestly, I feel like he kind of gets what's coming to him at the end for his behavior. I mean, we get a lot of like happy endings, but his felt fitting given what he did, right? Yeah.
But made her leave was the cigarettes.
I know,
It
right?
wasn't even the cheating.
So it's so weird. Like, I feel like the cigarettes were just like a symbolic, like you're lying and cheating. Like, I still don't like, was he actually smoking or not? Like, I think so, right? Right. But like, yeah, ultimately that was her like make it or break it, right? But they clearly had issues that needed to be addressed, right? But yeah, the smoking was that was the deal breaker at the end. Anything else before I collect those from you? Yeah.
Just a side note, I also love Ben's ending. I'm glad you ended up alone, but I
Suffer.
Exactly. I was like, thank God, but I really, really liked Alex and Gigi. I
Yeah.
know that like Gigi was like kind of cuckoo, but I loved her.
Mhm.
She's so cutesy, and I loved like their kiss scene. It was super cute. So
Yeah.
like,
I liked that they ended up together too, right? Like, yeah, and I love that it was like all the lines, you are my exception. There's so many great lines in the movie, right? Like, I know, right? Great is a loose term, right? But yeah, I mean, I think there were some good endings, right, to it. I like the way that they wrapped it up. And then Connor and Mary ending up together too. They felt like they fit as well. So anyway, kind of a fun movie. I'll collect those from you. Make sure your first and last name's on there so I can give you credit if you want to hand those up. I'll come around and grab them.
I just looking at like.
All right. So we don't have a ton of time left, but I want to highlight just a couple of little things from chapter 10 because it will be on your exam. And so I just want to touch on a couple of things. As I mentioned, the exam is on Wednesday. I'll leave a few minutes to kind of talk about and see if you have any questions on that. So I'm not going to go over everything in this chapter, but I do want to kind of highlight a few things that I might ask you, and I want to make sure that you feel like clear about them. This whole chapter, so obviously look over the rest of it. And sometimes I actually don't cover this chapter at all because it's kind of depending on time. But we're looking at the relationship between like sexual expression and arousal and response and sexual behaviors. There's kind of a lot in this chapter in a sense, and then not a lot in another way. So the things that I want to highlight really quickly, I'm going to go down just a little bit here. So I want to talk about, where did it go? There we go. Aphrodisiacs and anaphrodisiacs, because this is something that's really commonly misunderstood. And I want to spend a few minutes here to make sure that it is understood. So an aphrodisiac is anything that's supposed to kind of arouse your sexual desire, right? So your interest in having sex, your desire for sex, like that capacity for sexual activity. And we tend to have a lot of things in our culture that we think of as aphrodisiacs. Anyone know one? What's something that we tend to think of as like an aphrodisiac? Yeah. Chocolate. Yep. Chocolate's one. Anyone know of anything else that we tend to think of that way? Yeah. Oysters is another one. Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. So food you eat with your hands, anything that's really like rich or kind of like expensive and luscious in a way, like often used that way. Avocados is another one that's supposed to be. Right, avocados comes from the term aquacate, which comes from, they call it the testicle tree. It kind of looks a little bit that way if you look at it like an avocado tree and they're like hanging on the tree. But there's an interesting idea that if you go back in time, and we talked about this previously, that it was thought that bland foods would cause you to have less of a sexual interest. So things like graham crackers and cornflakes and like really bland foods were purposefully developed to stifle sex drive, specifically related to masturbation.
Kellogg.
What was that?
Kellogg.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, Kellogg's and cornflakes, right?
But he got that put in line.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was exactly what it was developed for, was like bland foods to stifle sex drive. So the flip side of that is rich, expensive foods became associated with increasing sex drive. Things that you couldn't afford or things that were luxury items, especially if you go back in time. But as it stands today, there is no substance that is a genuine aphrodisiac. There's nothing that you can consume that will increase your sex drive, right? That is a food. Now, people who take things like testosterone supplements, testosterone increasing does sometimes increase sex drive, but a lot of it is the role of expectation. Right? So if you expect something to work, it might work for you, right? So if you think that oysters are a natural aphrodisiac, it might have that quality for you, even though there's no genuine like belief behind that or no genuine evidence behind it. Interesting for a lot of years, right? We talked about this idea of like different supplements from different places having this quality. So the term horny, for example, like if you've ever heard someone use that term, like of being horny, being turned on, it comes from the belief that the ground up horns of rhinoceros would increase someone's sex drive. That's where that term comes from. They used to grind up the horns into a powder and put it into people's beverages, thinking that it would increase their sex drive and they would be horny. And then the rhinoceros is horn, right? No evidence to support that. But there are a lot of anaphrodisiacs. Anaphrodisiacs are things that inhibit sexual desire. And we have tons of these, right? Cigarettes, nicotine is an anaphrodisiac. It tends to reduce sex drive most of the time. Everyone reacts differently to substances. A lot of medications, blood pressure medications, right, can be another one because they restrict blood flow, can make it harder for someone to get an erection or become like turned on with blood flow. A lot of medications as well, like antidepressants. What they do is they work on serotonin and norepinephrine and dopamine. And by reducing those or increasing those respectively, it can alter someone's sex drive. So there are tons of anaphrodisiacs, but no genuine aphrodisiacs, just as kind of an interesting side note. Expectations, as I said, play a really, really big role. If you think something will work, then it potentially will. The other big thing in here is this one, and this is definitely something that I will ask you. What are the 4 phases of sexual response? And they are excitement, plateau, orgasm, and resolution. Right, something I will definitely ask you to list on the exam. And if you remember Masters and Johnson, we talked about them previously. Masters and Johnson were the ones who studied hundreds of couples having sex and recorded how their bodies responded during sex. And this is traditionally talking about intercourse between a man and a woman, right? Obviously, sex is much more broad than that, but they studied mainly men and women having sex. So what they found is that we go through these 4 stages, but there's an incredible amount of difference between the ways that men and women respond sexually. And that this can often lead to issues in intercourse between men and women, right? Because women tend to have very different like patterns than men do, right? And sometimes that can make it a little problematic. So this is what they talked about a little bit, that there's way more variability in the way that women respond. If you look at the one at the top, that's how men tend to go through these patterns, right? Men tend to go through a period of excitement. Plateau, you could think about as like the main part of like intercourse. Excitement would be like foreplay and getting turned on and ready for sex. They reach orgasm, and then they fall off and have what's called a resolution period. Men have a refractory period where they cannot have another orgasm for a period of time, right? Their body has to reset and have to go through this whole process. When you're young, that could be minutes. But as men get older, it can be hours to days, right? It can take a longer time for them to be able to have an erection again, or to ejaculate again, the older that they get. Now, women, on the other hand, if you look at a female cycle, right? And every time I have this picture, I had a student years ago, he's all like figures. I can tell which one is the women, it's complicated, right? I always think of that in the back of my head. There's just more variability for women is the key. So for women, some patterns that they noticed was that women can go through the same as men, right? They can have multiple orgasms, which is something that men are not capable of. They could never reach orgasm, which is something that like they noticed a lot in their studies. So there's just a lot more variability in the way that women respond. Women tend to take a little bit longer time to reach orgasm than men do, right? And they might be able to have multiple orgasms, which again, men cannot. So just, you can see how if you just look at these 2 charts, how it could lead to problems between men and women in like a sexual relationship, right? If you don't give women enough time to like get turned on and go through that excitement phase, right? Then it can be problematic, right? If you like men reaching that resolution period or refractory period can also interfere. So just differences between the ways that men and women tend to respond sexually. And I played a like Jeff Foxworthy clip once before, but he had one more related to this that I thought was really funny. So I'll share it with you since it's short. Let me pause this real quick. 2 issues in like sex between men and women, right? If you're not aware of those differences in the way that people tend to respond. There's a bunch of other stuff in here, obviously, and I know I'm skipping around, so I'm sorry for that. But make sure you look over like some of these other behaviors. There's some stuff about celibacy and fantasies, a lot about masturbation, and there's the cornflakes, right, and the graham crackers that were really developed to stifle masturbation. Number one reason that people masturbate is to relieve tension, right? That's the number one reason, right? That relieving tension, dealing with differing sex drives between partners, right? And one thing that people might consider this as a way to like navigate that. There's a little bit about like kissing and touching, and then oral sex as well. And then I have some stuff about anal stimulation and coitus, which is the technical name for sex. So just kind of make sure you look over like the remaining things. You like the image, right, of the, I thought that was funny, by your astrological sign, right, your preferred position. I don't think that's accurate at all, right, but it was funny. So make sure you look over all that. Then there was a little bit about same-sex behaviors that the book goes into, and then tantric intercourse as well. Kind of an interesting side note. When I was in my master's program, they offered this 1-unit course on like tantric sex. And I was like, that could be an interesting way to spend the weekend. So I took it, like, because I was planning on minoring in this topic. And the whole thing was about like the religious, spiritual elements of sexuality and like really being in the moment with another person and trying to delay orgasm and have that harmony and connection to a partner. Really interesting side note. The book talks about it a tiny bit, but I wanted to include it up here as well. So just kind of make sure you look over those things. I kind of highlighted the few things that were really important. And then as far as the exam goes, let me bring this up here. Our second exam is on Wednesday, and it's the same style and format as the first test. Okay, so same like name and multiple choice, some matching and true false. There's no diagrams on this one, so I think that makes it a little easier in the sense that you don't have to know anatomy. But it will open up on Wednesday at 12:01 a.m. and then close at 11:59 p.m. So we're not having class so that you have this hour and 15-minute time free to take it. But if you would rather sleep in or like have an early lunch or whatever you want to do, right? Like that's fine. Just make sure you complete it before 11:59 p.m. At that point, it will close. Okay, give me just a couple minutes. We'll probably be done a couple minutes early. So we're rolling out the in-person class. And make sure you complete it anytime between 12:01 a.m. and 11:59 p.m. And if you click on modules over here on the left, and you scroll right here, you can see here's the study guide for exam number 2. So, and you already have the one for exam 3 if you need it. But if you look at the study guide, the exam is not cumulative. I don't believe in cumulative tests, so I never give them, except in my research methods class, sorry, where everything builds. So it's just by nature is cumulative. But this one is on chapters 11, 7 and 3, 8 and 9, and 10. Okay, so if it's on here, make sure you know it. If it's not on here, you don't have to worry about studying it. I'll never trick you. As long as you study and prepare, you should be in great shape. Many of you did phenomenally on the last test, and this one I believe is a little bit easier without the anatomy. In my opinion, it makes it a little easier. So if it were me, and I always give this suggestion, I would probably type or write it all out. I'd have it in front of me. Make sure that you review. If you're trying to look up every answer, you're gonna run out of time. Okay, so you can use your notes, you can use your book, but study. Right, make sure you know every term on here. If you look at something on here and you don't feel comfortable, make sure that you spend some time reviewing it. Again, if it were me, I'd probably write or type it all out and have it in front of me. That way I could just reference it if I need it. I'm not searching through the book, searching through the lectures, searching through the slides. Have that valuable time. So it's 75 minutes, just like before. You get 1 attempt. And please, if something comes up on Wednesday and you have like an emergency or something happens, as long as you reach out to me before the deadline, I will work with you. Okay, so just keep that in the back of your mind. If your internet goes out, if something comes up, just email me and we can make a plan together. Okay, just make sure it's before the deadline or it will be too late. That's kind of my one rule. Are there any questions about the test at all? Anything that you're like unsure about, or do you like taking them online? Yeah, yeah. I like debated for a long time because it felt like before COVID, I always gave them in person, but I feel like this is so much less anxiety and like that's important to me. So I hope that you find it helpful that you can take it online at home with your notes. And again, you should all do quite well. I don't think these are that hard, but definitely review, definitely study, so that you don't have that moment of like, oh, I'm not prepared in the middle of the test. Okay? When I see you on Monday, so I won't see you Wednesday, obviously. On Monday, we're going to our last third the class, which is crazy. It's going so fast. And we'll start chapter 13, which is birth control and contraceptive methods. I have kind of a little activity we'll do with that with a little group kind of thing. So I hope you're here for that. Good luck on the exam. I'm going to hang out for a few minutes if you do have any questions about the test or about this. Otherwise, have a wonderful week. Good luck on the exam. And I will see you on Monday.
I have to type everything so you can read